Hi everyone. For this video, I wanted to do one thing, and that thing is read my review to Doom the Dark Ages. So that's what we're going to do. I'm literally just going to read the review from top to bottom. Before I do though, I did want to say one thing, insofar as this review is something that I wrote in the spirit of my Doom Eternal review, which is to say that I actually critique the game in some kind of meaningful sense, as opposed to just sucking id Studios' dicks. So, in the original review for Doom Eternal back in 2020, I basically critiqued the game relatively mildly for not having trans or even female representation more broadly outside of a couple of niche examples. In this case, I decided to really lean into it and to critique id and the Doom fanbase more broadly, the problematic aspects of the Doom fanbase for effectively whitewashing genocide right now. So yeah, if you liked my Doom Eternal review, then you're going to love this one. It's relatively short by comparison, though it also bears repeating that No Girls or Trans People Allowed originally started off as a fairly short piece, which I would go on to expand repeatedly over time. So I might do that with this, I might not, I don't know. I might do an interview series if there are any trans or other minority speedrunners who would like to talk about their experiences with the Doom franchise and Dark Ages in particular. But that is a project for a later date. Right now, I just have the review, and without further ado, I'm going to read it to you. Fuck id, Free Palestine, a Doom the Dark Ages review. May 19th, 2025. Back by unpopular demand, here's a short review of Doom the Dark Ages, i.e. from a trans woman's perspective, but also that of a gothic ludologist, sex worker, pornographic historian, art director, author, and activist, someone raised on Doom, 1993, who grew to increasingly dislike Doom Eternal as and after she came out of the closet, re. No Girls or Trans People Allowed. In short, fuck id, Free Palestine. But if you need more information than that, please keep reading. No, this piece explores bigotry in games, which I've gotten back into researching now that my book series is completed. For a current example of said research, read Carl Jobs' Still Racist and Fashion 2025. The same arguments therein also apply to id Studios and Hugo Martin et al. The shooter as we know it is tied to capitalism and computers. Computers can be powerful tools. Id treats them as tickets to Plato's cave, a bread and circus thoroughly blind refrain of escape abused by manosphere types to dick measure according to Moore and Clark's laws. To it, we're currently in the middle of a genocide, which id doesn't challenge. They sedate their audience with the usual monomyth fare, lacking any irony or critique of the present world under attack by state corporate powers. Capitalism, in other words. Their franchise then feels more toy-like, fake, and money-hungry than ever. We live in Gothic times. Ignoring the politics for 2 seconds, here's a few things I immediately noticed about the game's nuts and bolts. 1. The devs insert a variety of non-FPS genres into Doom the Dark Ages, doing so even more than Doom Eternal. The former game's experiments with platforming didn't really work, and here the results are equally muddled but more extensive. In short, it kills the pacing, though the cutscenes are skippable, versus Hayden's canned voice in Eternal. Beyond that, while the game's story is standard comic book style slop, its opening dares to abandon rip and tear altogether. It's like Star Wars without the fanfare, which can work if you do it right, e.g. Rogue One or Andor, but the Dark Ages falls flat. All style, no substance. Furthermore, it shamelessly outsourced the game's music after Hugo Martin completely fucked over Mick Gordon. See Mild Convictions, the Mistreatment of Mick Gordon, a freelancer's worst nightmare. And while admittedly serviceable, nothing stands out at first glance. And this is coming from someone who didn't really enjoy Gordon's work in Eternal, re spectating FPS speedruns, potential pitfalls exemplified by Doom Eternal 2021. Corpo pigs gonna corpo pig, smirking as they usher in America's well-deserved and overdue imperial decline. Fear the Greeks, even when they bring gifts. In short, in-game or out, none of my praise from Dune 2016 story remains, re the minimal dialogue and post-colonial elements, see post-colonialism in Doom. Instead, the obtrusive and garish regressive elements from Eternal have recolonized the proceedings even further, re Exhibit 43E2A of Darkness and the Forbidden, 2024. Likewise, the parry system with the slow-moving projectiles, far from being attached merely to the boss encounters in the first two games, or Doom 3 for that matter, have injected the same obtrusive gimmick into the gameplay loop at large. Frankly, it just feels a bit oil to water here, akin to asking the player to breakdance enemies instead of shooting them or ripping them apart, whose own novelty is largely gone by now. As a consequence, the mix-and-match approach in the Dark Ages leaves id's franchise feeling less like a shooter under present circumstances, and more like a strange hybrid, an effect not helped by the kaiju and pilot wings style sections, which also have the parry and dodge sections built into them. But I digress. Hybrids aren't the issue here, or in my Metroidvania research. Its shameless pandering is. With Eternal, Martin and company force-fed the intrusive, incongruous elements despite criticism. Now they've only doubled down. Dark Ages expanded on these inclusions in ways that seem to divide players on stage and off, and frankly, I wouldn't care if the Israelis hadn't just decided to accelerate their ongoing genocide of the Palestinians, i.e., to first totally depopulate Gaza by making it entirely uninhabitable before repopulating it for their settler colonists, all while the usual state corporate defenders, read gamer bros, act like this is all somehow news to them. Bad Empanada 2's liberal shock to find Israel is genociding Gaza. To it, while the Nakba happened over 70 years ago, the current genocide campaign, a stage in the larger saga of abuse by the U.S. and its pet ethno-state, have been ongoing since October 7, 2023, re Justice for Palestine. Furthermore, these world events make id's current Rambo-style power fantasies ring incredibly hollow. Doom's graphical bells and whistles, muscles, are merely coats of paint designed to repeatedly whitewash genocide and pacify American workers as usual, to render them the dupe, as Joyce Goggin puts it, source, playing games in fiction and theory. In short, Gamergate was victorious, and now the sedatives are in full effect. The state, corporate hallucinations, working overtime. Consume, sleep, betray, per Mussolini's fascist model, the murder of state and corporation to defend capital through popular media, on and off stage. Said model extends to workers endorsing force of will arguments during might makes right posturing. Fascism is the product being sold. White supremacy dressed up as mere play, which players perform beyond the usual avatar's groan for the cyborgs. They're straight-up dorks, but still want to kill people like me and my friends. Last time I complained about girls and trans people, re how they were strangely missing from the equation. While those complaints remain largely unaddressed, insofar as the Dark Ages, like Eternal, is a straight, white, male power fantasy built to uphold capitalist realism, I now want id to address genocide without contributing to it. To that, I don't want a white savior, white Indian narrative routinely playing out the Bay of Pigs on the home front, which Rambo is/does. I want a story that critiques extermination versus aiding in the usual replacement arguments through settler colonial force dressed up and acted out with a white token center. Fat chance, I know, but them's the breaks. Id's Doom the Dark Ages is a little more than rape apologia, calling itself Escape and Rescue. While less diverse gameplay-wise, Doom 2016 had better music and flirted with post-colonialism and gothic surrealism, all to camp its own tired franchise. Eternal canonized the colorfully dumb side of things to pander to Gamergate, which led me away from the franchise in 2021. re those who walk away from speedrunning. And Dark Ages represents Malcolm X's proverbial chickens having well and truly come home to roost. Fascism is imperialism come home to empire. Sure, it has a girl in it, as a radio operator, and a few slightly queer-coded demon baddies on the hero's journey. Big whoop. The problem is, representation is pointless if it just contributes to genocide, by functioning as a cop, and despite the rebel, retro-feature punk aesthetic, Doomguy is 100% a cop and has always been a cop, specifically a CIA operative modeled after Ellen Ripley's advisor in Aliens, though that idea actually comes from Rambo, Beowulf, and ancient Greek heroes and Amazons before that. RE military optimism for my larger work, not just on Metroidvania, but Amazonomachia. And Cops Are Pimps, Andrew Tate's War Room, merely a multi-level marketing scam informed by homegrown corporations like Blizzard, Microsoft, and id Studios, i.e. Doomguy, and those who unironically imitate him or sell him to audiences are Andrew Tate, and vice versa. Rapists by proxy and witch hunters acting in bad faith, mid-moral panic, which they contribute towards one way or another. The hero is always a Spartan clone, i.e. punching anything degenerate in defense of the realm, the state, and capital, from ethnocentrism in its earliest forms to ethno-nationalism. But racism, pedophilia, and rape are historically conducted by the in-group, foisting their own crimes onto their out-group victims, e.g. Bill Gates. See Behind the Bastards 2023 re-upload, Part 1, The Ballad of Bill Gates. Darvo and obscurantism, gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss. Behind every muscular doom guy is a scared and angry white token nerd who pimps women and minorities. Keeping all of this in mind, the Dark Ages feels automated mid-genocide, a patrol machine built in automated factories while the survivors are rounded into camps for orderly disposal. The demons of doom are id's counterfeit. Doubling genocide is haunted by its own ghosts, whose abjection process the company facilitates through its own giant consumer base, resurrecting war and rape through a Christ simulacrum, vis-a-vis the Protestant ethic. In other words, silence is genocide, and for all its bluster and noise, the Dark Ages stays oddly, or not so oddly, silent on genocide. It's complicit, a poisoned apple giving its consumers withdrawal and brainworms. So fuck id and its neoliberal power trip, masquerading monomyth as liberation, the war on terror dressed up for the millionth time. Doomguy is an exterminator, an oppressor, a pimp. Free Palestine and all oppressed peoples and lands from the shackles of capitalism, pimping them mid-liminal expression and in duality out of revenge. RE nature is monstrous feminine, C nature is food, and rape her prize. Cops closet what they hate, and what they hate is anything of nature per Cartesian thought, heteronormativity, and settler colonialism. RE paratextual documents. To show that hatred, pimps like it and their rabid consumer base prove their loyalty time and time again, deferring to profit by routinely trotting their victims out and policing them, thus recolonizing the same old tired lands they treat like brothels. RE police states, foreign atrocities, and the imperial boomerang. Source: Under the Mayo, the definitive review of Doom: The Dark Ages, Boss Spoilers 2025. In the comments section, I say that Mayo has changed somewhat from our interview back in 2021, Hellblazers Speedrunning Doom Eternal Q&A Under the Mayo. But frankly, that's superficial. They'll never critique Doom in any meaningful sense because their existence, their livelihood, their reputation, their paycheck, is linked like a Siamese twin to Doom and id Studios. As Anita Sarkeesian explains, it's fine to enjoy problematic media provided we critique it, i.e. in ways that encourage people to think critically about harmful things to subvert them and their historical material effects. But Mayo, like usual, digs trenches and denies anything when criticism or compliments are leveled at him, and he's one of the polite ones. See reading my transphobic hate comments. And just for fun, so 6 days ago, Under the Mayo says this video is an accomplishment. To play the game twice, experiment, write, record, and edit a 21-page script, organizing 600 plus video clips, and publishing just 10 days after getting the game. I've never done something so insane, and I did it without compromising the quality of this video. To the contrary, I think it's one of my best. Good job. And I say, props on you for no longer being, this isn't like Eternal, ergo it sucks. You've come a long way since I've interviewed you back in 2021, comrade. And while this is admittedly a left-handed compliment, and I am left-handed, I actually meant it. But Under the Mayo responds, thank you, but I've never been like that. I have liked many different games, shooters and non-shooters, my entire life. And I respond, As someone who's literally picked your brain and followed your content in the past, as well as having written about it, we'll have to disagree. We'll have to agree to disagree about that. But again, you're way less rigid now than 4 years ago. So congrats. Tom White says, that's the impression I've gotten too. Wolfman Hat 33 says, LOL, such a backhanded compliment. And Under the Mayo responds to Tom White, watch the 50 plus videos I have, other great shooters, fighting games, beaten ups, horror games, and then say I ever hated anything that wasn't Doom Eternal. I guess I just hated everything I ever played before it came out. If you actually say you follow my stuff, and that's the impression you have, then you're just lying. But that's fine. Liars make the world go round. So, Under the Mayo did not appreciate my comment. They were technically addressing Tom White, but I get the feeling they were also addressing me, despite the fact that, I literally interviewed them. To conclude and reiterate, everything is political and human rights aren't up for debate, shouldn't be debated through obfuscation and force the way it does. Capital assigns criminality and rapes by design, which Doom the Dark Ages only embraces. We need to hug the alien to have the horror's revenge, not police nature and labor as horror by Nazi goons LARPing as usual, to walk away from Omelis, which Doomguy personifies, by breaking the usual monopolies on violence, terror, and monstrous expression in duality, which Doomguy also personifies. Cops and corporations won't do this. They're pro-privatization, as are their fans, e.g. Under the Mayo above. So do it yourselves, i.e. copulate however strange the pairings might seem, e.g. Hassan Piker debating Bad Empanada, while Catboy Noah Sampson cutely moderates. VOD 4 from Palestine fundraiser stream, $330,000 raised, 2025. Capital is built on intersectional persecution, which requires intersectional solidarity to combat capital over time. Kill your darlings and fast. The demons in Doom are the heroes. Your commie mommy, Persephone. I totally called it years ago. Waard. P.S. Intersectional solidarity fighting for universal liberation is a topic I've written about extensively in my book series, but also explored with people, read other sex workers, who made said series possible, i.e. the very kinds of people ID's target audience and titular agregore police ad nauseum. We must free the horde to let them speak, regardless of race, gender, or sex, despite Doomguy pimping us. Silence and segregation are no defense. Survive, solidarize, and speak out. To that, I'll add a short excerpt from an interview with Delilah Gallo, shown above, a sex educator, coach, and worker I interviewed for my book series, which just finished recently, re my 6th book is out, who concluded their interview with these proclamations. Land back, free Palestine, Sudan, Congo, Syria, Ethiopia, Cuba, Korea, Vietnam, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Turtle Island, Lebanon, and all occupied, oppressed, embargoed land. Give to mutual aid. Learn about the indigenous nation whose land you are on. Lead with kindness, but don't shy away from conflict. Always ask yourself who is being left out and why. It is almost always going to be disabled people, indigenous people, trans people, and children. Start a garden. Make some art. Stay curious. Don't obey rules that don't make sense. Be loud about injustice. Abolish ICE. Abolish the police. Abolish the government. All power to the people. And wear a mask and test for COVID. Source: an interview with Delilah Gallo. Read about my entire series here. Also check out my work on Doom and FPS games at their respective interview compendiums, Hellblazers from 2020 and From Vintage to Retro from 2021. I grew up with Doom and its offshoots, but it was always sexist, racist, and genocidal, making Bill Gates bussy while taking your hard-earned money and natural empathy for others, i.e. bigotry, is taught. Let the scales fall from your eyes, comrades. Make Doom gay and anti-fascist. Note, my book series Sex Positivity is all about challenging the problems that Doom the Dark Ages encapsulates. I recently released my 4th volume, 6th book on May 9th. My 6th book is out, and we'll be celebrating the entire series on June 1st, my birthday. When I do, I will link that celebration here. And about the author, me. Persephone Waard is the author of the multi-volume nonprofit book series Sex Positivity. Its art director, sole invigilator, illustrator, and primary editor. The other co-writer, co-editor being Bay Ryan. Persephone has her independent PhD in Gothic Poetics and Ludogothic BDSM, focusing partially on Metroidvania, and is a male-to-female trans woman, Tolkien and Amazon enthusiast, anti-fascist, atheist Satanist, polypankingster, erotic artist, pornographer, and anarcho-communist with 2 partners, including multiple playmates, friends, and collaborators. Persephone and her many muses work play together on sex positivity and on her artwork at large as a sex-positive force. That being said, she still occasionally writes reviews, gothic analyses, and interviews for fun on her old blog, and makes YouTube videos talking about politics. To purchase illustrated or written material from Persephone, thus support the work she does, please refer to her commissions page for more information. Any money Persephone earns through commissions goes towards helping sex workers do the Sex Positivity Project, i.e. by paying costs and funding shoots, therefore raising awareness. Likewise, Persephone accepts donations for the project, which you can send directly to her PayPal, Ko-Fi, Patreon, or Cash App. Every bit helps. So that's my review for Doom the Dark Ages and my excoriation of id Studios and those who unironically endorse them and ignore genocide. Don't ignore genocide, it's bad, because what's happening overseas isn't just going to affect the Palestinians, it will come home to roost. Didn't you ever see The Terminator? So, yeah, like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed, and until next time, take care of yourselves.